and hope that...
Mute everyone, Deb.
Oh, okay, I will mute everyone. Remember how to do it. Yes. And then I need to unmute Erica. Aha. Can you speak, Erica, to make sure we can hear you?
Hello, Debs. How are you?
Yeah, cool. I'm good. Good. So, hello and welcome to our latest Lovely People webinar. And tonight we have the lovely Erica Lewis. I can't remember when I met you. When did we meet, Erica?
Well, we actually met for the first time last June when I came to see you when I was up on holiday up in North Devon. Yeah. And we went for a lovely walk and had chat and lunch and things. But we'd known each other previously to that.
Yeah.
You know, online and on Facebook and that kind of thing. So we'd been in touch and been talking about trying to meet and hadn't ever quite managed it, which seemed a bit mad when we're in the same county, but 90 miles apart.
Yeah, it's quite a distance from North Devon to South Devon, actually, isn't it? It's quite a, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and not exactly a straight road either.
No, Devon roads are quite twisty and turny, aren't they? So, yeah, I knew we'd kind of know, but I couldn't remember whether I had met you before that or not, because I remember you coming in. Lovely to see you that summer.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's cool. Right, so a lot of times we have people that view these webinars who haven't long come across the principles. Maybe they're fairly new to it and they're stuff. So I wonder if you would mind sharing, you know, anything that seems relevant to you that you might say to someone who's new. You know, what are we here talking about? What is this? What are these principles? Are we all nuts, or, you know?
Well, the way I see it, it's like a completely 180-degree turn away from what traditionally we have believed about how we create our experience to a truth, a very simple truth when it boils down to it, that we are all fine because there are only three things that kind of lie behind how we experience life. You know, one being that there is this universal, intelligent energy that runs the whole universe, all of nature, and us. And that is what we are all a part of, a manifestation of, sort of example of. You know, we're all part of it in the same way as waves are part of the sea. And one of the ways in which we kind of experience that is that we have going through our heads all the time this energy that we call thought, and that is that simply that we experience life through our thought and our ability to be aware of that. So, you know, the three things are, you know, we think, we are aware, and we are part of this intelligent energy that is behind all of life. And the implications of that are that because we are a part of life and a part of nature, and so we are as perfect as, you know, robins or bluebells or, you know, any of the other lovely things that we like to see, there is nothing wrong with us. But what we are very good at doing is believing the feelings and the thoughts that we have going through us, believing them to be true, when in fact it's just an energy passing through us. Our awareness absolutely makes it look very real and true, but actually it's just stuff that's coming and going and has no meaning. And so, you know, I love Jack Pransky's quote about this, which is something along the lines, I'm about to misquote it, all we are, you know, is peace, love and joy, with the power to disguise that from ourselves. And so when you recognize the truth of that, which you only do by looking above and beyond, you know, your own little experience as it were. But it's when you sort of look at the bigger picture and look at what's behind that or upstream of that, you kind of see that for yourself. You have your own insights that just take some of your habitual old thinking and innocent misunderstanding off your mind, so that you do see, the truth of who you are. So, and you can break that down into sort of one step at a time to help people see this, because we're so good at making we have this amazing capacity to make our feelings and our thoughts look so true and so real and so hypnotic.
Yeah. So what would you say, if there was somebody and they were in extremely difficult circumstances, things, maybe they, where they're living isn't very nice, maybe they haven't got much money, maybe they haven't got a job, or, maybe they've got a child who's ill or something like that. What would you say to somebody who kind of said, yeah, I sort of get what you're saying, but actually, do you know what, if you had my life, you might not kind of think you were all right at all?
Certainly people have circumstances, there are facts out there that people are experiencing, and we do experience challenges, and life is, as we usually say, a contact sport, and stuff, and sometimes not very easy stuff, happens. And to deal with that stuff, what everybody kind of knows is that the easiest way to deal with that stuff is to have a clear, calm mind, and to remember that you have in the past had problems when you just suddenly knew in a flash, somehow you had this sense of knowing what to do. And that is always available to you. So you have already got, the clarity, the common sense, the knowledge, whatever it is that you need to address whatever the circumstances are. Now, of course, what very often happens to us is that, we're never experiencing the thing, the house or the illness or, whatever it is that's happening. What we are experiencing is our thinking about it. And not only that, but of course, we're not only experiencing the kind of conscious thoughts that wake us up at 3 o'clock in the morning about it, but we're also experiencing a whole load of kind of hidden thinking, because our thoughts is like that iceberg, only 1/5 of it or whatever it is above the surface, and the rest of it is below the surface. And what's below the surface is very often our habitual thinking or our conditioned thinking, which has us repeatedly tell ourselves that there is something wrong with us because we're having this repeated thinking, or because we've got this set of circumstances, whereas in fact, none of that's true. And it looks very true, and it feels so true, particularly if you've been having that sort of thinking for years and years. Yet, when your mind does settle down, which it does occasionally, even in the midst of whatever's going on, you kind of notice that there is a little glimmer, even if it looks like a glimmer at first, of just a bit of common sense, a bit of clarity that just has you think, I could do that. Or I might do this, or there's somebody I can go and talk to, or, something begins to occur. But the more that you get hypnotized by your repetitive thinking, which feels horrible, the less easy it is for that kind of clarity to bob up. But, the horrible feelings that you may have, or the worry, or the anxiety, or the self-judgment, that's not coming from the circumstances, that's just coming from your thinking about it in that moment. and your thoughts do keep changing. And, you know, we've all had the experience of some days being better than others without the circumstances changing. And that kind of tells you that it's what's going on inside, that's the ups and downs. And you just look in the direction of the better moments, knowing that that's where the truth lies.
Okay. I would love it if you don't mind sharing when you came across the principles, you know, what changed for you? What did you see that changed anything for you in your life?
Well, I first came across the principles at the end of 2010 when I was into NLP, and which, I mean, to be fair, I'd got quite a lot from. It's a particular, for those who don't know, it's a particular, you know, mental technology for fixing your thinking, basically. And when I came across it, for me, it was revolutionary, because up until that point, I hadn't been into personal development. I'd had this judgment that it was self-indulgent and all of that. And that when I did come across it, and I was very unhappy and very, you know, I now recognize very stuck, yet I didn't even recognize that change was possible. And the door that at least NLP opened for me was the fact that change was possible. But after a number of years in it, I was beginning to see that actually the change didn't, ironically, you know, the change didn't stick, and you tended to slip back, or it worked for some people and not for others, and all of that. And also it was very complicated. I mean, unbelievably complicated. So when I went on this weekend course, which I thought was more NLP, and the guy who was running the course, a chap called Jamie Smart, I must have heard of, and he was starting to talk about something else, and what he was talking about, although I didn't really get it at that point, it just felt simpler and clearer and intuitively truer.
Okay.
And then he encouraged us to read this book by Jack Pransky, and to write to Jack to ask him to come over to the UK to do a training, which is what eventually happened the following year. And so I did a weekend with Jack, and at that stage I was sort of beginning to see something intellectually. And then I did another weekend with Jack's cousin, George Pransky, who came over to London, doing a weekend course on how to coach from this understanding. It's a bit cheeky of me to go, but at that point I thought I'd got it, when all I'd got was a sort of the slimmest, slight little bit of a intellectual thing we got. Anyway, George was coaching on stage, giving demonstrations, and on the second day in the afternoon, he was struggling to find anybody else to go up on stage with him. And I'd already seen the big insights that some of the other coachees had in their coaching demos with him. So I was really, in some ways, quite keen to go up, but absolutely paralyzed by shyness and couldn't possibly do it. Anyway, somebody that was sitting in, one of the assistants was sitting in front of me and saw me sort of, you know, twitching, and propelled me up onto the stage. And what George enabled me to see very quickly was that, you know, I went up to him with a shopping list, really, of things to fix. And as soon as he cottoned on to the fact that I had this shopping list, he just said to me, "This personal development stuff, do you think it's important?" So I said, "Well, of course it's important. It's why we're here." And he was saying, "Well, it's all right if you just treat it like as a hobby, like basket weaving or something." And it was in that moment that I mean, obviously this was coming on the back of seeing him coach a number of other people, always ultimately saying the same thing, which is, there's nothing to fix. You know, you think you've got a laundry list of problems, you're making it up. You know, and he'd already been talking about feeding, you know, that there's no need to talk to people about what their problems are, because they've made their problems up. And if you start talking about their problems, you're kind of feeding an imaginary rabbit. And I just suddenly saw it, that I was fine and there was nothing to fix. And for me, you know, having been totally convinced all my life, you know, that I was inherently broken, and I had built up this brilliant facade of, you know, looking like I was functional, but it was a complete charade as far as I was concerned. And I was always waiting for someone to notice that I was, you know, making it all up, and that it was all, you know, and that actually I was a complete, you know, failure, etc., etc. And anyway, so this was huge for me, and it just blew the top of my head off. I came off the stage, and people were coming up to me saying, "Oh, that was amazing, and thank you so much." And I saw something too, and I couldn't hear. I was just, you know, I couldn't even sort of hear them, and I had to sort of go for a walk outside, and just thought, my God, you know, the world's never going to look the same again. You know, then went back in at the end of tea break, and everybody just looked so different, you know. And I sort of realised that, you know, I'd always lived in this sort of like a perspex box, where I was sort of keeping everybody at a distance, and suddenly I found the box had gone, and I, you know, and I could actually relate to people, which was a really new experience for me, because I'd always, you know, kept my distance from people in case they saw through, you know, to what a hopeless case I was. So yeah, that and so after that, of course, I was just completely hooked, and, you know, then did you know, a lot more, you know, weekend courses and watching videos and reading the books and doing all the stuff we do.
Wow, that's a brilliant story. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I was already a coach. I mean, I was already an NLP coach. So, of course, I started, you know, changing the basis of how I was coaching. And so it was quite interesting that I had a couple of clients at the time who sort of came on the journey with me, you know. So, you know, I had to go back to them and say, you know, forget NLP. I found something, you know, I've discovered something else. Mind you, I mean, in the very early days, I kind of thought it was a sort of superior sort of NLP, you know, a stronger flavour of sticking plaster. But, you know, then I began to see through it and realise, and then I just sort of, it just ceased to be relevant, really, because I just saw that, you know, this wasn't about fixing people at all. Yeah, I remember having a conversation with Jamie Smart about that. I think it was at that George Pransky event, actually, about, you know, him saying that, you know, he didn't use NLP techniques anymore, and explaining why. And I thought, wow, you know, that's extraordinary, particularly from Jamie, whom I've been following for years as, you know, one of the leading NLP teachers. And here he was saying, I've given it all up. So yeah, and I just found it just drifted away, really. Didn't it just stopped being relevant.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's brilliant. So have you got a coaching practice or something, you know, do you teach the principles? What do you do now?
What I do coach still, and I also run a meetup group here in Totnes, which happens now in my house once a month. I did used to run one in Torquay as well, but not anymore. So I've got that, and I also enjoy, you know, teaching it. So I sometimes do, you know, half days or days. And what I've got coming up starting next week is a series of 6 workshops over 6 weeks. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, because I think what I saw with doing just half day type events, which is it's not really long enough. You know, people get a sort of might get an intellectual grasp of it, but to really feel this in a sort of more embodied way, I think, generally speaking, takes a little bit longer. I mean, there are people who can just see it in a flash, of course, but generally it takes a bit longer, I think. So I'll be really interested to see how that goes.
Yeah. So when you talk about kind of seeing it and feeling it in this embodied, what do you mean? You know, kind of explain. If I'm kind of here and I'm new, I'm like, I don't know what you're getting at. How does that happen, and what do you mean by that?
For me, that there's a difference between reading a book that suggests that there's a universal intelligent energy behind life, and thinking, oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah, I can see that. It's the difference between that and just knowing it into your bones, like you know your own name. It's just knowing that you're a part of it and that you are supported and guided by it, and that it's an intelligent energy which has, well, the expression that Michael Neal, one of my great mentors, uses is there's a kindness in the design. So, and the other way of thinking about it is that nature is always evolving and always moving in the direction of life and of beauty and of order. And we are powered by that same energy, which is about life and order in a sort of positive, sense of balance, if you like. And knowing that you're a part of that, and you're as equally perfect and a perfect and crucial, unique part of that, like every elephant or tiger or nematode worm. It and the way it all, and the more I'm fascinated by the science as well of the fact that scientifically speaking, it's becoming clearer that the whole Earth, all of life on Earth, is actually one being, just being manifested in lots of different ways. Well, in fact, arguably that, well, the whole universe is, but you can certainly sort of look at it in terms of the Earth and the way that all the systems interrelate to keep everything in balance and filling the gaps, and life always fills up a vacuum. When you look at things like rewilding, where they leave big tracts of land without being cultivated or anything, and so, nature recolonizes it so quickly, and the number of different species increases. But when absolutely know that you are totally intrinsic part of all of that, then it falls into place.
Okay.
And it's that deep knowing, rather than just reading about it in the book and thinking, oh, that's an interesting idea. And it comes, how you get there is just when you're at the point of thinking, oh, this sounds interesting, is sort of sitting with it and noticing what comes up. Because although most of us who are into this run around going on weekend courses and reading books and all the rest of it, we do that to kind of help provoke catalyze, as it were, the insights from the inside. Because you don't learn it by going on courses. What happens is it sort of catalyzes or provokes something on the inside that has you realize how much you have misunderstood about how it works, and helps you to understand how it does work, which is hugely more simple than you ever had thought.
I love that. Thank you. That's really good. So your 6 weeks course, can you tell us what the title of your course is, please?
Well, I could have called it anything really, but I've called it accessing your inner resilience. Totnes is a transition town, which means that we have a lot of projects locally which are to do with increasing our local economic and social resilience.
Okay.
But there's also a strand about personal resilience, and so it sort of fits in. Fits in with that. And also, I was also very keen to sort of show that resilience is something we already have. It's not something you need to go and get. So it'll be the same stuff, but it's with that kind of sense of you already have that bounce back ability. You already have, whatever you you're already part of whatever you're going to need to meet whatever challenges, life throws at us. One of the sorts of challenges that Transition Town is interested, for example, is things like climate change. Well, we've got no idea what that's going to throw up, except we know it'll throw up something. But, we do have the capacity to deal with it, because when we get out of frenetically worrying about it, we do actually have the creativity, the imagination, the and the love and the joy of just being part of life to deal with whatever turns up.
Okay. So are you kind of saying we have got within us, we have got everything we need no matter what happens?
Yes, exactly. Because we're part of life. And so, one of the analogies that's often used is the idea of an ocean. We're all one ocean of infinite potential. And individually, we're waves in that ocean, and we're all a little bit different, slightly different shaped wave. Yours has got a curly top and mine's got some, got some flu flying off the top or whatever, but we're all part, we're all part of that ocean, and what's in the ocean makes up the wave that we each are. So yes, it's all there. It's just part of who we are.
So if it's all there, I know you said a little bit about thought, but if it's all there, why can we sometimes not feel it? I know sometimes some things happen to me, and some days I feel like, yeah, I can conquer the world today. I'm great today. Doesn't matter what happens. And then another day I might feel like, oh my gosh, don't even look at me in the wrong way because I'll just cry. I can't deal with anything today. Why does that sort of happen to us, and what?
Well, one of the ways that life shows up in us is this energy that passes through us all the time, which we call feelings and thoughts. Now, feelings are just the flip side of thoughts. We often experience our feelings before we know where it's come from. So, and it's just us experiencing the energy passing through us. But we have, because those feelings can feel, very real, powerful, meaningful. And although it's only a reflection of thought in that moment, what it looks like to us is that we're feeling either our outside circumstances or our past or our future, if we're worrying about something in the future. And if we're having some insecure thinking, then obviously we're going to feel insecure, because you're only ever, you're always feeling your thinking in this moment. And you have no control over that, any more than you can control the weather. Your feelings just come, your thoughts come and go. So with them, your feelings come and go. And some of them don't feel very good. Now, because we have this power of awareness, we create with our very, very vivid imagination and the sort of fantastic special effects department that we have in our heads, we create this whole story about what our feelings mean and believe it and get caught up in it. And actually, it's just thought coming and going. It doesn't actually mean as much as we build it up to do. And of course, we've had, for most of us, we've had the same thoughts sometimes seem to come round on the sort of conveyor belt of thinking, and they've got a bit stuck, and so we have this sort of old familiar insecure feeling coming round again. And because we've had it before, and because we've got almost entranced by it and tried to examine it and had believed and been told, of course, by society. I mean, it's not just us, but, you know, we've been told by everybody around us and by society and all our well-meaning friends and doctors and whoever, ooh, there's something there to fix. You know, we've got caught up in trying to fix it and believe it. And so, of course, all that gets in the way. You know, it acts as a veil, as a disguise. And when you see finally that, oh, it's not as meaningful, it's just thought coming and going and nothing else, then the veil sort of gets more transparent, and then you're more in touch with the peace and joy and clarity that we actually truly are. But our awareness is so good at making it look real that we all drift in and out of seeing it, and always will. And one of the other huge insights for me, and possibly one that's perhaps made the biggest difference, is being okay with not being okay.
Okay. And
what I mean by that is that I now know, well, mostly anyway, that if I feel crappy, even if in that moment I only kind of intellectually see that, oh, this is just thought in the moment, it's just enough, just that little tiny weeny bit of awareness is enough to at least stop me going down a rabbit hole thinking that there's something to fix or judging myself for feeling that way. Because the biggest problem for people tends not to be the actual feeling itself, but judging themselves for having that feeling, or thinking that there is something to fix, or trying to work out, what does this mean about me? And when you realize that all of that is not needed, even when you are feeling rubbish, you mind less, you don't get quite so caught up in it. Or even when you do, I mean, I've had a couple of experiences recently where I have got very, very caught up, but it hasn't lasted for as long, and I've kind of had a certain level of detachment, at least some of the time, of saying, oh, look, you know, there's some anxiety here, you know, or there's some distress here, or there's some whatever it is here, but I haven't felt as sort of, it hasn't glued itself to my face in quite the same way. You know, I've just been able to sort of see through it a bit more, and you know, and that's, you know, that's amazing. And I definitely don't get caught up for as long, and not necessarily, you know, go so deeply into it as I might have done in the past. And then the next bit of it is, you know, about, and then the next bit of it is about, you know, realizing that the me that you've been identifying with is also part of the thought that you've, you know, in all innocence, been taken seriously.
Wow. So if you could go back in time and talk now with what you know now, if you could go back in time and talk to Erica before you came across the principles, what would be one thing you would share with yourself?
It's all right. You're going to be all right. You are absolutely fine, just as is everybody else. And there is this intelligent energy that is driving, running all of it. That means that it's okay, and that there is a real liberation in that. There's real freedom in seeing that. And when when you see it, life just gets so much lighter and easier. And as I've said, it doesn't stop horrible circumstances arising. It doesn't stop you having some really crappy days or weeks. But you just take all of that more in your stride, because you see through, to a greater or lesser extent, depending on the day, the illusion that it is.
Thank you. That's lovely. Shall we see if anyone has got any comments or questions or
That would be great.
that they would like to ask? So I think all you guys have been here before, so you know that you can unmute yourself if you want to, or wave your hand, or kind of make some. Has anyone got anything that they would like to share with or ask Erica?
Hi, we've got Gemma in the corner.
Yeah, I'll come in a little
random
bit.
hand.
Hello.
Hi, Gemma.
Right, can she hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, Erica, I wanted to ask, I've been listening to you talking, and you are fantastic, and it's really easy to listen to you as well.
Thank
And
you.
I wanted to ask that, what was it now, that if I am okay and everything's perfect in the moment, I have a problem with judging myself. So how it's hard not to judge myself when I feel like my actions have such negative consequences. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, because that we've all been there. We've absolutely all been there. And I imagine that there are times when you don't judge yourself. There are times, however fleeting, when you think you're okay. And
When I'm being
well, no. This is not about judgment. This is about, there are times when you just feel peaceful, you feel connected, you feel part of the whole, and that's the direction to look. So self-judgment is just a game that we've learned to play. And there's nothing useful there in terms of your peace of mind. So instead of looking at the self-judgment, just look 180 degrees, just look in the completely opposite direction to the peace and the clarity that you have experienced. You know what that feels like, because you have been there, however fleetingly or occasionally, but you've been there. You're in this company, you must have been.
yeah.
So that's where to look, and to look at knowing that daffodils don't judge themselves, robins don't, blackbirds don't, and so this is just a sort of this is just us believing some passing thinking, which I dare say is conditioned. You might have been judged by other people, particularly in your upbringing. That's the story for most of us, parents, teachers, whatever. And in all innocence, you've taken that on board and continue to rethink that old thought. And obviously, if you think it, you feel it, and it feels unpleasant. However, it is just like I don't know if you've ever been at an airport with the baggage carousel, and there's an old bag, maybe even bursting open, that nobody's picking up. It's going round and round and round. And we all have those sorts of thoughts. They just keep coming round. They're old baggage. You do not need to take it off the carousel, open it, and smear yourself in all the dirty washing. You really don't need to do that. What's much better to do is just walk out of the airport and look at the sky. The sky is where that open sky of potential is where the truth lies, and who you really are. You're part of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Erica. So, has anyone else got anything that they would like to ask Erica? Changed your name for you there. Oh, Martin.
I answered most things.
Hi, Martin.
Hello. Hi, Erica and everyone.
Hi, Martin.
Hi. Yeah, I have a question. How do you help people who have spent a lot of time looking at the principles, but find it difficult to get beyond an intellectual understanding?
I think that we actually do know this because we knew it when we were children. Because this is something this is a truth that's always been there. And when you look at children, for example, they're just living in the moment, and they may have a tantrum and then, 2 minutes later, they're fine. They're not sort of analysing their thinking or getting caught up in self-judgment or whatever it is. So I think that this is already innate within us. And so when I'm coaching, what I do primarily is listen. And my experience is that as people talk, people reveal that there is something that they already have got, but they've kind of overlooked it. They've not kind of noticed it, or they've thought that the answer was somewhere else. And so, as I just did just then, I steer people away from looking at the problem, however that manifests, because that's never where the answer lies. That's back to what I remember, what I talked about George saying about feeding an imaginary rabbit. It's about looking in the diametrically opposite direction, which is to those moments that, there always are, when you have already seen the truth of this. And it's by noticing that and realizing that that's where the juice lies, that it kind of gets, it's like blowing air into a balloon. There's a little balloon there, and you just keep blowing in that, and that gradually grows, and you get more appreciative of it, and as you do, I totally get this, because this is where I was for quite some time. At first it seems too good to be true. I had got so much into a pattern of beating myself up and believing that that was what was going to make me better, that it was quite hard for me to give up the self-hatred and recognize that what I already had was good enough, more than good enough. And I found that quite hard, just because it ran so counter to everything that I'd been telling myself, and indeed other people have been telling me, for what felt like all my life. So I do get it, how, it something needs to sort of shove you over the edge of saying, no, you've already got it. It's already there. We talk about intellectual understanding and it's a shorthand really for, and a little bit arguably a bit derogatory, because we all already have this. We just kind of have forgotten it, maybe, and so it is about remembering it. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So, has anyone else got any other comments or questions or anything that they would like to put to the lovely Erica? Gavin.
Hey, Erica, me again. Say you're running a local group. How did you go about starting it and nurturing it? It's something that I've just done recently.
Oh, right. Gosh, I first started doing it about 4 years ago, and do you know, I can't even quite, sorry, I'm struggling to remember exactly what I first did. I did start with a couple of people locally who were interested in it. And so, we just agreed to get together every month and talk about it. And I did advertise it to people I knew locally who are already interested in 3 principles, and got them to spread the word. There's a website I expect you know called Meetup.
Yes.
I did use that for a while, but actually my experience of that was, and I've spoken to somebody else who's had a similar experience, which is that lots of people will sign up but then don't turn up to meetings.
Yeah.
So my experience of that has not been so positive, but I know that other people have used it reasonably successfully. There's a group in Exeter that meet regularly, and they use Meetup. So other people have made that work, but mainly it was sort of word of mouth, and encouraging everybody who was coming to invite other people, yes, because I had one or two people. I had one or two people who were already quite well connected because of other things they did, and they got into the principles and were very taken with it. And so they were encouraging other people to come too, which was actually very helpful. And then it just sort of develops organically. And now I don't do anything to publicise it apart from let my existing group know about it. But they bring people along, and of course, there's a lot going on now in this part of the world in terms of spreading the principles. The work that people like Liz Scott and her husband Stu are doing, and so on. And they advertise my meetup on their website, which brings in people occasionally. So yeah, it's a bit organic, really.
Yes, yeah. Thanks very much.
Stick with it, lovely Martin. You're
I will. I've got lots to stick with at the moment.
Yeah, you just got to hang on in there.
Yeah.
We love you, Martin, and this will work for you. I can see it. It'll be brilliant. Thank you. So, has anyone else got anything that they would like to share with us tonight, or speak to Erica about, or anything? Have we got silence this time? Is that you done, Martin?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you. So there's another thing that I would like to kind of share is the fact that I think Erica is going to come to our conference, and she's going to be speaking at the conference that we do in September in North Devon, sharing a little bit more about her understanding what's going on. So we're really excited about that. And obviously, if people are interested in your online course, how can they find out about that?
It's not online. It's going to be in person in Totnes. Sorry,
I apologise.
That's all right. So so if you're anybody who's local to Totnes, anybody you know who can make it to Totnes next Tuesday evening at 7:00, then just get in touch with me. It'd be lovely to see you.
Wow. Yeah. Oh gosh, that's really exciting. Yeah. Yeah, there's me making assumptions and calling it an online one. Just before we started, me and you were having a chat, and there was something that is really kind of dear to my heart that you said. I mean, one of the things I know people that sort of know us a little bit know, one of the things that we really, really love sort of talking about and doing is actually about getting out and living life. Because I think it's brilliant. I love talking about the principles. I love these times. I love these gatherings. But for me, understanding these principles and being in this conversation has made a massive, massive difference to what I do in my life. You know, the things I will dare to do, the things I get up to, just the games that I play in my life now. So you were sharing about some of the things. Has that made a difference to you, do you think, coming across these principles? How's it impacted what you do in your life?
Well, I think it's doing things with a lot more ease, and in particular, just doing what I want to do rather than what I feel I ought to do. That's probably the biggest thing. I mean, one of the things that's kind of happened since I came across the principles is that, you know, I now, you know, get my pensions and I don't need to earn money. A bit more is always nice, but, you know, I don't need to, which is very liberating. And I think, you know, when I came across the principles, I did, as you know, as we all do, got a bit evangelical and you know, wanted to be sharing it and spreading it, you know, all the time to anybody who'd hold still for long enough, or even if they didn't.
Yeah, just stand on their toes if they won't stand still.
Exactly. And I mean, and I, you know, and I still, you know, I do still love doing that and want to carry on doing that. But what I'm seeing more and more is that I can just go and do what I'm drawn to do. And also, in being the age I am, of course, you know, some of my friends are beginning to, you know, retire and so on. And suddenly, you know, we've all got time to go and play. So, you know, one of the things that, you know, you and I were talking about before we started the recording was that I'm about to buy a kayak because a friend of mine is retiring in a couple of weeks and she's just done a kayaking course and she lives on the Tamar and I live on the Dart. So, yeah, we're going to, you know, go out kayaking together, and that's something that, you know, we both adore, being outdoors and, you know, out in nature and spending time just quietly poking about, seeing what there is to see. And of course, from a kayak, you see things you can't see any other way. So it's doing that sort of thing. And I, you know, those of you who follow me on Facebook know that, you know, I do quite a lot of walking and I love taking pictures of, you know, the landscape or the flowers. And one of the things about the principles is that you because your head quietens down, because you're spending less time chewing stuff over, I find I'm very much more in the present moment. And one of the things that means is that I'm very much more aware of things like the changing seasons or what the hedgerows are looking like. You know, because I'm not driving past in a flap trying to do something or get something. Oh, suddenly I'm noticing the hedgerows, or, you know, taking more time or walking more slowly. That's the other thing. You know, I've always walked, but I've always been a bit of a marching out there, must do my 10 miles. Whereas now I'll just do 2 miles very slowly, looking at all the flowers, you know, for example. So that's the sort of difference it's making, is slowing down. And being fine with that. I mean, I've also been all up in my head about, you know, being 65 too, and oh my God, what does that mean? So, you know, it's been, you know, useful to remember all the things that I used to dream that I would do once I was retired, and say, oh, look, I'm here. I can do it now, you know, you know, whatever it is. So, you know, learn to paint or play the piano or, you know, whatever. It's all, you know, it's all possible and doable, and just get on with it. And I mean, I am, you know, involved in various bits of voluntary work. I'm very involved in Transition Town Totnes, as you might have gathered. And I'm involved there in a really, really big, challenging project, which I've been involved with for 10 years, and we still haven't, well, no, 10 years, and we still haven't brought to fruition. But I do that with a much greater level of sort of equanimity, and don't get caught up in the very considerable challenges that we've had with it. And, you know, hope that I can support other people sort of be a bit less stressed about it.
Thank you. I've really enjoyed our conversation tonight. It's been great. It's been great to catch up with you.
Well, thank you, Deborah.
It's a pleasure. It's been lovely. So it just really remains for me to share what's going on with us, really. So obviously we have our lovely people webinars each week, and I have to confess to having no idea who is going to be our guest on the lovely people webinar next week.
Oh my God! Whoops, I'm muted now. Oh my gosh!
Bye, Gavin.
Bye, Gavin. Great to see you.
You better quickly tell him who's
lovely
here
people next week.
Is
Andy Winter.
Oh, don't tell Andy Winter I forgot him.
One of our favourites. Andy Winter's our supporter from the other side of the pond. He's our American buddy.
Oh,
and
I've been muted.
Awesome.
I've been muted.
He's all right.
The bird is very loud this evening.
It was very loud this evening, did you say?
Is that it?
I think he means there.
Oh,
loud.
I don't know what's going on. I've lost the plot.
Oh well, not to worry. So
not quite sure.
Bye, Gavin.
Andy Winter next week.
Yeah, so Andy Winter next week.
Our lovely people, our lovely person on our webinar next week. Last week? What am I doing? Getting it. Is the lovely Andy Winters. Yeah, so Andy Winters, I don't know if anyone met him. He's an American man who he knew Sid, and he's hangs out a lot with. He's best friends with Dickon. So he's a really, really great man, lovely man. Really lovely. Have a chat with him. Yeah, and so if anyone is watching the recording of this and they live near enough to come to our physical meetups, we have physical meetups each week in Barnstaple, and that is tomorrow night near Sainsbury's. And in a couple of weeks we're adding a couple more meetups to our repertoire. So there'll be one on a Monday night and a Tuesday night, one in Ilfracombe and one in Torrington. So we'll tell you the absolute details. And if you're watching and you want to know those details, please do contact us. We can tell you all about when they are. So a great big shout out to Martin to carry on with his meetups, because they're great things. It's good things to do. So is there anything else, Beck, that I needed to say?
I was just going to say, in absence of our website at the moment, or you can find all our events on Facebook, the debrasimmons.co.uk page, or you can message any of us.
Yeah, because we've because of this
that'd be all.
As you were.
Because of all the data protection stuff, we've had to take.
Yeah, go on, Deb. What is it?
Yeah, I don't know. Some letters. Yeah, I leave that to my office manager, Beck. Yeah, so yeah, we've had to take down our website and.
Oh, I just got a new title.
And so right now, you can't find information about our events on our website, but you can always contact us on Facebook, debrasimmons.co.uk on Facebook. And the other thing is it not from the 11th to the 15th of June is our next retreat. We have amazing retreats. I'm a little bit biased about our retreats, but they are. Sorry, June.
We need flapjacks, Martin.
Oh yeah, Martin, bring us or send us some flapjacks.
I said.
Yeah, Martin came to one of our.
You've gone muted, Martin.
Yeah, you're muted. Come and join us. Unmute.
Oh yeah, I've got Terry Rubinstein to talk to now, so I'll see you later.
Oh, we're being ditched. Okay. Say hi. Say hello to Terry for us. Say hello to Terry.
I'll leave.
Yes.
Ali, just hanging out with us.
Bye.
Bye.
Martin, thank you, and thank you for your questions. Good night.